finished. How do I go into this? I'll just close it like that. All right. Well, we finished up Wednesday night. We finished up our lesson, lesson number 6 on meeting our responsibilities. And what are some of our responsibilities? So there's a few we kind of, I think, know without question. But what's a few of our responsibilities that we have after we go down into that watery grave baptism? Because that's kind of it's a big thing. A lot of people don't think they they have responsibilities once they come up. So what's a few?
Well, we must study. We must show ourselves approved, and we must also start teaching others.
Yeah.
We learn. We got to keep His commandments.
Yep.
And we have to diligently try to stay on that narrow, straight, narrow path.
Yeah, and I mean, some of the things that come into that we talked about last week is loving God and fearing God, and through that we kind of realize, through the pure love of God, and sometimes it's fear driven, and then you love Him so much, but or vice versa. But we see where keeping His commandments is rolled into that, because that's a pure love. And then we kind of come down to our responsibilities to others. Not only, yes, I think we can all probably wrap our mind around our responsibility to God. But we also have a responsibility to one another. And that may be, well, for one, is to kind of show that pure love. As a Christian, we have a responsibility to defend this, but we got to understand that, we have a responsibility to bring others here, to save souls. Because here's the thing, without applying this, your soul cannot be saved. And that's kind of that's a big thought to think about, but it's true. So, it should be a driving factor, and it should be a driving factor in what we do, because, it doesn't matter how much strife you have with that person, what they said to you the other day, how much you don't like them. That soul, God wants. So we have a responsibility to others there. And what was kind of the final thing that we talked about with that responsibility to others? What's one of the, sometimes, because I know we recognize, okay, I have a responsibility to be kind and loving and teach them, but what's the other one?
They have an answer ready for anyone who asks why we have this hope in God.
Yeah, to be able to give that explanation. And that's something that's very important to study, to show yourself approved, to be a workman there, to not be ashamed of it, and to bring others. And unfortunately, because we talked about Wednesday night, one of the big things we talked about was this fellowship. Remember? And unfortunately, that's not something that is, you never like to do it. Well, you shouldn't. You should never want to do it. And it's not something, but it's something that we here at the Ripley Street Church of Christ have a responsibility to, one, protect this church. Because guess what? If you just let everything go, everything will go. You will not be taken seriously here. At the point you start saying, okay, Max can get up there, he's in an unrightful marriage, but he's going to lead our opening prayer. That's where we see the church begin to crumble. That's where it can be very dangerous to the church. So we see that disfellowship. And of course, what's the second thing with that disfellowship? Obviously we protect the church. But the person. It goes back to them. Because see, the thing is is again, that's the soul that God wants. Now we have the message, we have the word, and we have the law, and at the point they're recognizing I no longer, and again, this isn't just like, you're doing wrong, get out. No. We know that. But this is after you go to that person. We sit down, maybe we have a study, and they say, look, I'm wrong, but I'm not going to quit. I'm wrong, but I'm not stopping this lifestyle.
The chastening that God requires is a show of love. And the ultimate love, when you see in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 11, now no chastening seems to be joyful for the present, but painful. Nevertheless, afterward it yields a peaceable fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. And it's something that's required, that God has required, that we maintain the peaceable and the love that's required.
Absolutely.
That we worship in action and truth, for that's the kind of worshiper that God desires, that will draw close to.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a big thing. Christians we're doers. We act. We act in truth. When we see something wrong, we don't just let it go. It'll fix itself. Now we're gonna talk about ways on, obviously there are ways to go about fixing that. There are some tactful ideas. It's not to go in and scorn the person. But, again, we do it out of love, but we have to take action on that. So then, of course...
Yeah, I was going to say, if we don't, we're in error.
Yeah.
That's important to realize.
Yes. Yes, if you see the right thing to do,
Yeah.
and you don't do it, you're wrong.
Same with child rearing. If you see your children doing wrong, you don't set them straight, you don't love them,
Well,
you don't discipline them.
a matter of fact, that's a great point, because we're going to go ahead and jump right into lesson 7 now, because that was kind of the responsibility. And then the last one, there was responsibility to self. I think, we've really hit on responsibility to self. If I'm telling you to do the right thing, but I'm doing it wrong, how hard is that going to stick? Really? It's not going to go very far.
It's like you said last week, if you keep the first 2 commandments, everything else will fall in line.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you can love God with all your heart, mind, body, and soul, and love thy neighbor, everything else is all in there.
Well, and that's Jesus, and that's, he knew, because see, here's the thing, they were trying to entrap him. That was an entrapment statement. It was a loaded question. Let's get him to sway to a side. And he knew, look, yeah, I got 2. Now, obviously, everything falls under those 2 things. You can't love God, but not keep His commandments. You can't talk about your neighbor or fellow brother or sister and love your neighbor. See, and we can look at that and be like, well, duh, but yeah. You can't, if you want to stay under those 2, you can't be talking bad about each other behind your back. Boy, I just really don't like what he has to say today. Where's that loving your neighbor? Last time I checked, now, with that being said, it's just like a family. Are you ever going to have little things like little disagreements and things like that? And you can go to that person. And you go and you study and you come to a better understanding. But it's never just, because see, here's the thing. We're going to talk about it today. I don't want to get too much into it. But so much division have come from, because I think the loving the God part, maybe, a lot of people can't get on board because it entraps a lot. But sometimes it's that loving the neighbor part that may be amongst the church. And I say that true loving that neighbor. That not just like, oh, yeah, I smile and I nod my head and I enjoy you. But then I'm like, oh, I just really, Max just gets on my nerve. That's not truly loving your neighbor. Really. It's just not. And I think that a lot can come from that. So, anyways, we'll go on into lesson 7. touch on the whole drama thing later. The family. Lesson 7. So we're going to talk about the family this morning, and this is it. You know, the family is where it starts. Now I know you can say, you know, you can make the argument, well, my kids go to school and they hear it there, or you know, it's the teacher's responsibility. Let me tell you, I was going into education before I went into business, and that was one of the biggest things. It was the teacher's responsibility. No, it's not. They spend a couple hours a day with a teacher. You know, it starts where the moral guide to that child, to your children, starts with you. You have a responsibility to your family. Yes, ma'am.
If you don't, someone else will.
Yeah.
And you probably don't like the results.
Yeah. You know, so many people, they like to cast responsibility until it's time to come pick up their kid or whatever the case. And then it's like, well, where did you hear that? You know, where did you start listening to all that? And it's like, well, you put it off on them. But, you know, there's a time when the family and the home was the rule. But to many, the rule is rapidly becoming an exception. You know, let me tell you, one of the biggest rising things that we see today is a broken home. I mean, I'm not even going to get into, yes, if the families, I'm talking about molestation, you know, if all that's going on, that's just some sick stuff. And I mean, but I'm just talking about, let's just keep it at its simple form, okay, of just a broken home. You know, it's one of the rising, and you even see it among the church. It's something that's pretty prevalent, just a broken home. So there is no doubt that the family is under attack. A failure to consider seriously what the Bible teaches on this subject has caused the family to be in real trouble. So here's the thing. We live in such a me society. Man, you know, when I get married, see, let me explain something to you. Olivia, when I married her, it wasn't, yes, it was for me. You know, I love her, and while I want her to make me happy, that's not if you're just going into a marriage just like, oh man, this is going to make me feel great. I'm going to have such a happy time from this. Me. That's not what we're looking for. Because what is a partner? What's the point in having a partner? What's a wife? What's a spouse? It's help me. I mean, and that's exactly what it is. You know, it is someone to help you get through this life. I mean, and vice versa. You're to help them get through this life. This is of someone who you found compatible enough to say, look, God ordains marriage. All right, I get this marriage here. Now, who's the person that I want to walk that straight and narrow with? Who's the person that's going to make me walk the straightest and narrowest path I can? And I mean, yeah, sometimes, you know, the problem with that is we really don't look at it like that. It starts turning into, who can make me the just happiest? Boy, every day I'm going to wake up and she's going to have pancakes there for me, sitting on the edge of the bed. I've already learned that's not how it works. You don't get that. But really, you know, that's what goes on. So as the family goes, the nation goes. Psalm chapter 33, verse 12. You can read it. Psalm 33, verse 12. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, and the people whom he hath chosen for his own inheritance. You know, this is your family is your nation. It's what you have control over. You know, those kids, whether they say it or not, and I know they don't like to admit it because I didn't for 24 years now. You know, you have control over what they do. Now, they might defile you. They might not like it, but you have that kind of say-so. Proverbs 14:34, righteousness exalteth the nation, but to any people. You know, when you bring sin into that home, when you start letting it affect you, man, it just goes out to all. You know, it starts with you. When Chris Emerson came, and he did that whole thing on generational faith, you know, that's what we got to realize, is that it might not even be your kids we're talking about. You can have impact on your great-grandkids, depending on how well, you know, everything goes down. And I understand, don't get me wrong, I understand that there are some just kids who are just like, they're just out there. You know, they just fly off the wall and you never see them again. And but I think that the majority, if you teach them right, truly right, will they come across some bumps? Oh yeah, you're looking at them. You know, but they come back. So Will Durant said, the family is the nucleus of civilization. The strength of the nation is derived from the integrity of its home. That was Confucius, the philosopher. So, you know, again, it starts here. The church starts here. The well-being of society starts here. In the family. Everything starts with these people. You know, mom and dad. That's where it begins. Marriage and the home are ordained and regulated by God. Understand that part. Not by the state of Florida. I got married, my dad performed the ceremony for me up in Vermont. I went up to Vermont. We had a little destination wedding, and we went up to Vermont, Olivia and I, and I didn't get married by the state of Vermont. You know, I know people like to say it's just a piece of paper. Well, maybe to the state of Florida. I mean, you know, maybe to the state of Florida, you're right. It might be just a piece of paper to them. I know they can go in anymore, the attorneys, they can go in and rip it up pretty quick and make it mean nothing. But let me tell you, it's ordained before God. And not just Christians here in the church. Every single person in society that we see, when they go and they make that commitment, and that's what it is. It is ordained and regulated by God. So, again, if we teach our kids that, and we understand that, because our kids, fortunately, a lot of that's not their problem yet. If we understand that, what type of person should we be ordained by God with? You know? I mean, what type of person is going to be that helpmeet? So, soon after man was created, God saw that he was alone. Turn with me to Genesis chapter 2. Genesis chapter 2, we'll look at verse 18. And the Lord God said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helpmeet for him. So we remember 21 through 25, God put Adam to sleep by taking one of his ribs and made a woman of the man. And this woman became the wife of Adam, and they were joined. Look at verse 24. So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the garden. I'm reading in chapter 3. Verse 20, chapter 2. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. One flesh. Now, yes, trust me, I know Olivia has different, she tells me all the time, she has different thoughts than I do, you know, about certain things. But, obviously, that's not the point. What we're talking about is, we're one. You know, that's something that it's got to click. It's got to click there, and I hope we're teaching our kids. I remember, let me tell you, my dad, and I know he's sitting here, my entire life, you know, outside of being a Christian, his biggest push was who you marry. Who you marry. You know, because once I leave the home, that's who I answer to. We don't answer to one another, but that's who we go to for guidance. You know, that's who keeps us on the straight and narrow. So again, you know, we see, think about how important these children, if I can encourage all these children, grandkids, whoever, yes, I think we understand being a Christian, obviously number one, because are you required to marry? No. No, you're not. But, you know, we have needs on this earth. And so we fall into that.
The example with marriage that Paul used in Romans chapter 7, verse 4, that brings the example from the marriage between a man and a woman to the church. It says, verse 4, therefore, my brethren, you also have become dead to the law in the body of Christ, that you may be married to another, to him who was raised from the dead, that we should bear fruit to God. And of course, that's the assembly, that's the church. We are the bride of Christ also.
Yeah.
And first and foremost, that's who guides us.
Yeah.
And then secondly, into the home with your
Yeah, and that is obviously, because again, whenever the apostles came and whenever they asked Jesus, what did Jesus say? What was their conclusion? Remember, they said, well, it's better to not be married than to marry. If these are all the things that we get caught up in. And see, now that's a big thing to understand, is that marriage is a responsibility. Okay? And that's why it is something, again, this is your obligation, and yes, we're married to Christ. When we go down into that watery grave, that's He is who we come to. But whenever we decide to go and join with another one on this earth, we need to be careful on what type of decisions they're making us make. What type of way they're making us think. So, the apostle to the Hebrews said, marriage is honorable in all, and the bed undefiled, but whoremongers and adulterers God will judge. Solomon said, whoso findeth a wife finds a good thing, and obtains favor of the Lord. And see, now that's the thing. Again, it's like a double-edged sword here, because when you do it right, when you find that helpmeet, and again, it's a helpmeet, not a stumbling block. When you find that helpmeet, it's a great thing. Olivia, there's sometimes that she pushes me. I've watched her grow. She asks me questions. She wants to study. I sit down. It's a growing process. We help each other like that. But, again, if you find that one who you're just in it for you, man, I love at first sight. Prettiest girl. Olivia is the prettiest girl I've ever seen. But I'm just saying, if you're in it for like, oh, this is it. Oh, she's just so beautiful. Beauty fades. I think we understand that. But that's not the purpose. So the purpose of marriage, not all married for the right reasons. We'll just quickly go through the list. Some just do it to get away from home, for spite, pity, and adventure. That's a new big thing. We love people for the adventure of it. Now, my generation, we're going to go do so many great things. We're going to travel the world together. Traveling stops. For physical attraction, for economic security, to escape loneliness, for social prestige. These are all very big things. And, I also like that, to escape loneliness. Because nobody wants to be alone. Out of all these, I think we can say, that's one thing that if I were alone, I don't want to be alone. But again, that's something you have to be patient about. Because we see what a stumbling block it can be. When couples marry for the wrong reasons, those marriages just usually, every once in a while you'll see it, but usually don't last. They usually crumble away. So the divine purpose for the marriage. The divine purpose for the marriage, to meet the needs of man. Now that doesn't mean of man, it means of mankind. We have needs. We need help. We don't like to be alone, but we need to be careful on that. 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 11. Nevertheless, neither is the man without the woman, neither the woman without the man in the Lord. Again, when we are ordained, when we come together, we're one. See, because let me tell you, men or women, whenever you make that commitment to that man, you got to understand that how you two raise your household, guess what? They're now your responsibility. It's a snowball effect. It starts being responsibility on top of responsibility. bear children, how you raise them, what you're doing with them. So, are you raising them in the Lord for propagating and nurturing the human family? Ephesians 6. Look at Ephesians 6. Ephesians 6, 1 through 4. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor thy father and thy mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with thee, and thou mayest live long on the earth. And ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. So, that's our goal. That's what we're responsible for as fathers. As mothers, is making sure that these children aren't just getting the physical milk. We talked about that, new babes in Christ. But now you have a responsibility to give that spiritual milk that Peter talked about.
And make sure that people are yoked, like you have like-minded, who like-minded.
Yeah.
Who's Christian, you're a Christian. You want to marry somebody that's a witch or the witchcraft and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Because you're not equally yoked. The kids are like confused, so maybe.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot of situations there.
It is. And that's why, that was the apostles' kind of conclusion on it. Whenever Jesus was kind of going over, the purpose of marriage and everything, they were kind of like, well, it's better for us not to be married. Yes, sir.
How many apostles were married other than Peter?
I'm not sure. I'd have to do it. But I know, you have people like Paul and all. A lot of them were so going in the faith that, they simply didn't have time. But, yeah, and now again, nothing wrong with being married. But, as we're talking about now, it's a responsibility. It's a responsibility to take on. So, kind of moving on, marriage is for life. Now, this is a big thing, because we don't like to think so. We like to think marriage is until I'm not happy anymore. Until I'm not thrilled any longer. We do see the divorce rate increasing. There are only 2 reasons which allow one to be married more than once. What are those reasons?
Death and adultery.
Death and adultery. Death and adultery are the only things that can get it. And now I will say this. It's the death of your marital partner. Because I've heard this argument before too. And this is where it gets all hypothetical, but say I'm married to my spouse, and then I go run off and I go marry another. And then my old spouse dies. Well, now I'm good to go. I've heard that. However, the only problem is that spouse that you went off and married another, how is that one, even though they were still alive, how is that one a marriage in the sight of God? It wouldn't be. So, death and adultery. Marriage is not a one-sided arrangement. In marriage, both husbands and wives share responsibility and must mutually accept responsibility involved in the relationship. Ephesians 5, verse 33. Nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife, even as himself, and the wife see that she reverence her husband. We, as men, and this is what I'm being kind of getting at, or women, you do not marry just to make yourself happy. Yes, does it come along with that when you marry the right one? But I think we've all seen some relationships that when you married for the wrong reasons, I don't think it ended so happy. I don't think that was the outcome there. And guess who else probably, in a lot of situations, gets to see that horrible, unhappy, sometimes malicious divorce? Those kids. So now you're twofold. Now you haven't held up the standard to your wife. Now your kids are getting to see all this nasty stuff, because again, and I'm not saying, I understand, I've heard things, my husband changed or my wife changed whenever. I know, and I'm not here to say all that. I'm not here to judge your personal lives. But this is the responsibility that we take on. And is that person going to be the one that you want to go face, not that you face judgment with them, but that gets to maybe divert your path in judgment? Help you or break it. A failure to realize that husbands and wives have many mutual responsibilities in the home have been caused by many marriage failures. Some mutual responsibilities. Genesis 2:18 said it's not good that man be alone. Companionship. You're a companion to your mate, to your spouse. It's not good to just say, okay, I'm going to go off, I'm going to just make money all the time. We see some of those. I'm going to fly all around the world. I'm going to make a ton of money. My wife's going to stay at home and take care of the kid. Well, yeah, she might enjoy that for a little while, that extra money coming in. We have an obligation to one another. Got to be there. As a husband, as a wife, I got to be there. I got to form a bond that our children see. I'm a companion. Companionship is sadly missing in many marriages, with the husband going one way and the wife just kind of going another. Modern day America, you got to make as much money as you can, so husband goes and works all day, wife goes and works all day, money, money, money. We might see each other, 1 or 2 days. And I understand there's certain times you got to do what you got to do, and you got to, also tend to that. But, you have that obligation to one another. You're one. You got to give that companionship. Ephesians 5:25-33. Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ so loved the church, and gave himself for it, that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of the water by the word, that he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or such thing, but that it should be holy and without blemish. So ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. He that loveth his wife loves himself. For no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourished and cherished it, even as the Lord the church. For we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. Love. Love your wife. Love your husband. Kids see that. Let me tell you, and again, marriage and family in general, it's a work, guys. It's a work. It's something that is continuous. Because I think everybody can attest to in here, you and your spouse have been through some trying times. Stuff that may have not have been even put on by your own doing. Maybe the world hit you with it. The world might have hit you with it. See, that's what we have to understand, is that that's what we go through. It's not always just going to be skipping around, good thing I chose a good one, love, love, love. And I know, I'm only 24, I've only been married, I don't even know the amount of months yet, September 29th of the year, I got to remember. But, that's what we're doing. We're building. We're working at this, and love is a big thing, because those kids, whenever you're just like, those kids can tell a relationship. I know when my parents don't really care for one another. They're just there because they have to build it. And I know sometimes you're down. Peaks and crevices. It happens. I've been told. I'm still okay. But, you build through those things. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think this would be a good example, because we didn't hear so much the word you say, we watch your actions and how you treat each other. And my mom and dad, my dad was very strict, like her, and my mom was always even, and he would always cook, she was always cooking, and he was always coming up behind her, hugging her, kissing her, and always lifted her up, and always would never allow us to disrespect her. He even hurt her, he thought he hurt her. We were like, ugh. But I'm just saying that we saw how a woman was supposed to be treated. We never saw our mother abused. We never saw our mother talked down to. We saw our mother treated with respect and dignity. So I do know what it's supposed to be. I know what it looks like.
Yeah.
So when you see that kind of that kind of love, like that deep abiding love, it's something to see. It's very, very uplifting.
Yeah.
And I mean, our knees would be shaking if we had a bad report card or something like that. We had to the mark. But as far as to treat your wife with respect, because she is your helpmate. And
Yeah.
your mother's a mother among women. She's one of the best I've ever met, probably ever met. That truly is a blessing.
Yeah, no, she is great, but, and, you know, it's that. I mean, that's the kind of examples that everyone is responsible for being. Everyone in the church. Not everyone in the church, but it's everyone in the world. You know, when you take on that responsibility as that wife or that husband, as that mother or that father, these are not just things. I mean, because see, the whole world just kind of, woo, you know, yay, we're married now, or yay. But you got to understand the seriousness. How serious it is. You know, it can affect your life, their lives. I mean, their souls. So, continuing on here, turn with me to 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians, we'll look at chapter 7. 1 Corinthians 7, 1 through 5. Now concerning the things where ye wrote unto me, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. Nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. Let the husband render unto the wife due benevolence, and likewise also the wife unto the husband. The wife hath not power of her own body, but the husband, and likewise also the husband hath not power of his own body, but the wife. Defraud ye not one the other, except it be with consent for a time, that ye may give yourselves to fasting and prayer, and come together again, that Satan tempt you not for your incontinency. You know, another thing, I mean, your sexual desire. We have that in life. It's a natural thing, but it's meant for one reason. You know, it's meant for you and that wife. Or you and that wife. You and that spouse. You know, that's the one place it is meant. It's a beautiful thing. And you know, that's kind of the problem. Is that it can be a very beautiful thing. And it's a natural thing. When between who God ordained it to be. When between that husband and that wife. You know, those helpmeets. Those people who are going to bring together to raise that family. Those kids who are going to see what their family turned out to be, who maybe it might direct their path in life. And it's an important thing. You know, and it's something that we don't need to just overlook. Because I know but it's what it's for. It's meant for that. You know, satisfying those desires. And then number 4, what is it for? Faithfulness. Nevertheless, 1 Corinthians 7:2, nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. Fornication and adultery are sinful things. They're sinful. Yes, sir.
I don't know the term, but what is it if you're not trying to have children? I mean, isn't that exactly what God intended?
Yeah. You know,
isn't it a form of fornication to the wife if you're just having sex?
you mean like
You're just doing it for pleasure.
that? You know, I mean, it's meant for that. You know, obviously we understand the sex brings forth children.
Procreation only. Is that what the question was?
Yeah, I mean, it can be meant, it can be, you know, for, I mean, just like we just read, you know.
Like Abraham, his wife was barren and he tried for 120 years to have a child.
Yeah, and then I mean, of course, you know, through a miracle, God did bless her with a child. But no, it's not necessarily just meant for that strict purpose. You can have, I mean, you know, between the husband and the wife, nothing should be withheld.
I always had trouble with focusing on God when I was married to a woman. Like, instead of you know, trying to please God now, you're on this earth trying to please God.
Well, but it's between the husband and the wife that God blessed. Now, I mean, again, you know, there's a lot of ways to get off course on that.
What about God?
What about God in that situation? Well, what did he do? He created that.
I know, but what about God? I mean, he gave you prayer and everything, doesn't it?
You mean about prayer and...
Yeah, isn't the focus on the family and not the...
Well, yeah, I mean, it should be, but so you're saying...
How much time do you spend on the family and your wife compared to praying to God and doing what you said last week?
You mean what should be the... Well, again, you know, you can't... Your prayer life and your study life is going to go hand in hand with how your family should be raised. I mean, first and foremost, we got to understand that we're raising our families to be part of this church. You know, not for your own pleasure.
I think, Paul, I didn't quite hear the exact question, but I think he brings up a good point. There's examples of some in the past, some incredible gospel preachers that neglected their family and they were bringing a tremendous amount of people into Christ, but they neglected their own family. So there is a balance there that has to be taken.
Is that kind of what you heard?
What was Billy Graham's history? Because I'm sure a lot of people studied that.
Billy Graham's history?
Yeah, I mean, he had a good family, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Now, see, here's the thing. Is marriage good? I mean, is marriage something that's, you know, acceptable before God? Did God create man and wife for one another?
It's not a contract, it's a commitment, 100%.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, and it is kind of, in a way, it could be considered a contract before God because, you know, there's only two ways that establishment can be broken. You know, and we see that that's with adultery or that's with death. And so, you know, again, yeah, you're right. Hopefully, you're raising that family, you know, to be here. Because if you're, and again, is it a big responsibility? Absolutely. I don't want to be taken away from the fact that this is a responsibility, you know, but is it good? Well, whenever you have a helpmeet. Again, whenever it's that someone else in Christ who's helping you get through it, and you're raising those kids in the church, yeah, it can be a very beautiful thing. You know, those are more souls that can be brought to God, and that's what God expects from a marriage like that. But, you know, at the point, you're right, whenever you just start being so about your marriage, see, that's the other thing. You can't be so about your marriage that it takes away from here.
Well, again, you qualify that with marrying that help meet.
Yeah, and that's the
qualified.
biggest thing. You know, that's the biggest takeaway. Because I know we're in the good part right now about what the good things marriage can supply, that marriage can do for you. But unfortunately, in a lot of circumstances, marriage does worse for that person. Because when you aren't careful, and you don't put this first, you know, in that marriage. When God isn't first in that marriage, Christ isn't first, you don't have a successful marriage. You don't have a successful marriage. You know, and that's the point. Yes, ma'am.
And then you see, here it is the opposite end of the spectrum. You see the perversion in the Catholic Church. Because, up in the Vatican, under the catacombs, there's a lot of dead babies in there because these priests are really
Oh,
they're
yeah.
actually fornicating and everything. The nuns are killing the babies by flushing them down the toilets and flushing them with big brown drowning. So you see the perversion and, you know, they're supposed to be godly and putting everything aside for God. So you're right, it is a balance. And you have to, there's leisure time, you make time. Like we're here only 3 hours a week. If we come morning, they do Sunday mornings and so in Sunday school. So if you balance it and you just, you know, there's always going to be time for you.
Oh, yeah.
You make time. And sometimes you have to plan time at your work.
Yeah.
But there is time for all of that.
Well,
Always is a
and you know,
always is a-
even kind of like Paul's bringing up here, some of that time, a lot of that time, should be spent in this and here. Because if it's not, time about yourself, well, now you're moving away from it. Yes, sir.
You feel that you have to become a spiritual man of God before you get married?
Well, I mean, ideally, you know, you would want to be. Now, you know, again, it's not every situation, because we do see examples where wife was faithful member. You know, she was a spiritual woman, and over time, it was, you know, she brought him.
I think we were talking about Ecclesiastes chapter 12. The whole chapter is about remember thy Creator in the days of your youth. And unfortunately, people try to give a pass because of youth. I got married when I was young.
Yeah.
So the responsibility is still there.
Yeah.
God still holds that, and
Well,
unfortunately, the young are not being reared
No.
in the church to know that.
And we've had, you know, again, just because you were 16 and, oh, I was in love and it was a dumb and rash decision and I messed up, that doesn't give you a way out. You were still responsible. You know, that's still your wife before God. When you take those oaths, you know, when you go before and you stand before and this is your wife, you don't get to just plead, you know, silliness.
Go back to what Paul said. I believe it is better if you find a man that's already
Oh,
in
yeah.
church, because me and my husband were both not in church. And we did everything backwards. But then I found out as time went on, he did get baptized in the Church of Christ.
Oh, yeah.
And he went astray, found me, and then it was laid on my heart, I needed to go to church.
Well-
I needed to get my life right. So he brought me to his church, and I heard the word for myself, and I realized everything that I was being taught was totally opposite and wrong, and then I gave myself
Yeah.
to the Lord.
You know, and now here's the thing, because I'm going to end on this because we're actually already 5 minutes over. But here's the thing. This is first and foremost. I hope we're not like, I mean, you don't have to get married. Like I said, the apostles came to the conclusion it's better to not. This is what you're going to be held accountable for. You know, first and foremost in here. You better, I mean, I would hope you're a spiritual man before you go and make that choice for a wife. Because I tell you what, if you're not, and you don't have this going first, that choice of a wife probably isn't going to be what this is looking for. Okay? I mean, you know, so I don't want to get it, and I don't want to get it confused. I'm just saying, when you do enter that stage, you know, hopefully you're here first. But when you do decide to make that leap, and you do decide you need that helpmeet, make sure it's a helpmeet. You know, make sure that's the person who's going to